So welcome everyone. We're into week 7 of our facilitating online learning course. So we're really getting along to probably over halfway through as far as the course goes, but getting pretty close to the end of the formal part of the course. The last few weeks of it really are you working on your two major projects, assignment 2 and assignment 3. So I'm just going to do a little bit of an overview again, just a bit of a refresher, so where people are at. So I'll go into screen sharing and then I'll introduce our two guests for today, Steve Aiello and Claudio Aguirre. And they're going to give us a bit of an overview of immersive reality and education and what they've been up to with that. So just go into screen sharing here. Right, so week 7. If we look in the modules and in Canvas and go to week 7, you'll see what I've put here for this week is an overview of immersive reality and some of the applications in education, higher education and online. And we're just going to have a bit of a brainstorm, bit of a discussion around maybe what some of the areas that might be relevant to your own context around immersive reality and how you might be able to apply some of these principles to your courses. So once again, our course map, still a few people to put the names on there. Still encourage you to if you haven't yet. Our Flipboard magazine's growing, which is great. There's a few more items in there. Good to see. There's a bit more conversation happening on Twitter. We now actually have Lyle. Lyle has tweeted. Excellent to see. So awesome. So that means that our Tags Explorer has actually grown. And we can see that Lyle is now on the map. Awesome. There you go. There's Lyle.
With my debut tweet.
Yeah, your debutante tweet.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good things start, you've got to start somewhere. Yeah. So welcome Lyle to the Twitterverse. So everyone else who's on Twitter, make sure you welcome Lyle. Those of you who haven't quite stepped into the Twitterverse yet, still encourage you to give it a try. So our Mendeley shared library, it's been a little bit quiet over the last couple of weeks. I encourage you, if you find some interesting articles, share those with the group there in our shared library. Particularly if you've managed to find the PDFs, you could share those in that Mendeley library. Just a reminder. And our ResearchGate project. So just a bit of a summary of where we're going, where we've headed, etc. for the course. So I'm just posting a little bit of sort of summaries of some of the stuff we've done there on the ResearchGate forum. And it's good to see most people have now signed up to ResearchGate. I think it's a useful platform for you to, I guess, kind of amplify your research. So there are a few people who haven't joined the group yet. Maybe that I've invited you via the wrong email. So if I have, just let me know and I can send you the right email invite. So it brings me to today, and I've put a bit of a summary, a link into today's notes around the Mesh 360 project. And this was a name that Stephen actually came up with a few years ago now. So I might throw it over to Steve and Claudio to talk about some of their experiences in immersive reality, where they're from, what context they teach in, and how. I'll just leave it up to them to give us a bit of an overview and we can pick their brains. So I'll just go back to course here. I'll stop screen sharing. And I'll make Claudio and Stephen co-hosts. So maybe, Steve, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, sure. Hi.
Hi. So I currently work at Auckland University of Technology, AUT, here in Auckland. I've been here for 4 or 5 years, relatively new to sort of the academic world, if you like. My background is within sort of pre-hospital emergency management. So by sort of underlying qualification, I'm an intensive care paramedic, and I teach within the paramedicine discipline. And it's been a development of ideas as well as trying to build context within the papers that I teach, some collaboration with Tom and Claudio to develop ideas as to how we can best improve and provide authentic learning environments for our paramedic students. I've got a couple of images, but did you want me to go through that, or how did you want to do this, Tom?
I think just a bit of a show and tell sort of discussion as we go.
Okay, let's see.
And yeah, just if people got questions, just jump in and ask them as we're going on.
Yeah, go for it. Okay, so let's see, share sound. Sorry, it's asking me your password, so bear with me. You can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yep. Yeah, cool. So look, this is just an overview of the Mesh 360 product. So what it relates to is multiple environment simulation hub in a 360-degree format, and it was this was brought up really because of the environment that paramedics work within. We work within environments which are high risk, whether from a disaster environment or high stress environments with complex situations. Unfortunately, within most but not all academic environments, the environment that we actually teach in doesn't offer or lend itself to stress or realism of an authentic environment. So even if you just quickly look at this screen here, we've got bystanders, we've got people on the floor, we've got car crashes, and we're in the middle of a road, and all of this noise and sound and influence adds to cognitive load, and the ability to be able to function as a paramedic can be restricted. So what we've been doing historically within paramedicine is we teach with high fidelity mannequins, as you see in this image here, and they're pretty good. You know, they're $100, $150, $200,000 mannequins, and they talk and they blink and they wink and they breathe and they have heart sounds and all kinds of quite interesting features from a clinical point of view. But when we move the mannequin into a clinical environment or one of our labs, essentially we are in this environment that you see here, and it doesn't offer any of the external influences that you've just seen from a car crash. And whether you're in your first year as a student, undergraduate, or going through to sort of your master's or higher levels, you will have, in essence, 6 years of simulation in this very same environment that you see on the screen now. So it doesn't offer the complexity. It doesn't push cognitive load. It's a focused environment that offers no influence. So we decided to sort of challenge this idea and try and develop ideas as to how we can best support our students' learning, so that when they go into the real world environment, that they can be they can develop ideas as to how to manage the external stresses, and also be able to get some elements of authentic learning within the paramedic simulation space. So there's the question: how do you prepare the practitioners for the stresses and high-risk situations? Because clearly, as a novice practitioner, perhaps in your first or second year of undergraduate study, we don't really want to put them in an environment which is going to put them at risk. And of the same importance, we don't want to put our patients at risk with a novice practitioner. So we had to start to work our way through novel ideas as to how we can develop this in a safe environment. So ideally, we want to put our students in an environment where they can start to evaluate risk where the patient presents. So it may well be that we could put them into an environment like this, which is not too dissimilar to the Christchurch earthquake. And they can ascertain risk, whether the building's going to fall on them, whether there are people trapped in cars, the sounds, and all of the sort of risk factors that you might get. It may be a fire that they need to make critical decisions as to whether they treat the patient where they are or remove the patient. Or it might be scenes which offer additional influence, like has the patient drowned, or not that we get them so much here in New Zealand, but is this a shark attack? Because we can remove his legs and, you know, give him some blood. So how do we do this in an environment which is static, like the one I've shown you before? We decided to sort of go through a design-based theory model, which offers the ability to kind of really just challenge an idea, reflect upon the benefits, pros and cons of that idea, and then go around in a circle again to come back and actually enhance that idea. So it's a series of iterative models to improve the base project that we designed. So the last project that we designed is a short video here, and what we decided to do is, in order to be able to facilitate some realistic virtual learning, was provide students with a virtual reality headset and give them a journey in a helicopter towards a patient who requires emergency care. So we quickly sort of got guys at the university to develop a helicopter, the internal cab of a helicopter, and with the help of Claudio and Tom and a few of the guys, we were able to manage and develop a 360-degree environment for the paramedic student to be able to travel to the scene and start to develop ideas and structure as to what they're going to actually encounter when they arrive. Once they arrive in the scene, then we develop the application so that they are then immersed in a simulation suite, which is similar to the fire scenes and the earthquake scenes that you saw before. So that they have an initial step one, which is a virtual reality with the headset. And then the step two is that they have the ability to get hands-on treatment with their patients, in this case, the mannequin. One of the challenges that we had, and the idea behind this, is that with virtual reality, it's difficult to get sort of haptic feedback. And that in paramedicine is key, because we need to treat, we need to touch, we need to remove clothes and alter limbs and put physical drugs into the patient or the mannequin. So that's why we've got this two-stage setup. And look, I'll give you an idea as to how it looks. I'll just play it on the screen now. What we also did is, if you guys saw, I think it was a week or two ago, so one of the guys was talking about a plank experience, exposure to walking a plank from a distance, and developing the ability to cope with those unusual environments. We decided that we wanted to see if we could quantify this. We attached heart rate monitors to the students, going through each of the different stages of the simulation in virtual reality and the step two of immersive reality. And you can see here, just from this still image on the screen, that we've got massive variance in heart rate from a baseline of sort of around about 50 to a height of which was probably about 150. So massive differences in what we were able to achieve. And this is important for us because it gives us an understanding of the actual physical stress that we're putting students through when we're doing simulation. But it also gives us the ability to measure that stress over long periods and hopefully bring that level of stress down so that we can give students a more comfortable learning environment which they can control themselves. So I'll get it's a short video. It's about 3 or 4 minutes. I'll press play. Hopefully you get the sound. Give us a nod if you, or a shake of a head if you don't.
Yeah, no sound, Steve. I think let's do. Oh, there we go.
ETA to scene approximately 15 minutes. Did you copy over?
Helicopter. And the student on the left is actually sitting virtually in the helicopter waiting to take off.
Control West Pacific Rescue 2. Now we're born from Ardmore to Whangaroa, 5 POB, ETA 10 minutes, and start time of 1205. Equipment, check, and we're ready for the flight.
To a 50-year-old male, rural location, who has fallen.
The helicopter itself was done in a relatively short period of time. The detail is heavy. It's a concept.
Terrain. Too low. Terrain.
Now out of the helicopter, the students and the paramedic have the opportunity to assess the scene and try to evaluate what they think may have happened. And you can see she's quite focused on patients in the background underneath the tree. Heart rate is also starting to elevate slightly. Now moves forward towards the patient and is able now to visualize the position of the patient. You can't hear it so much because the chainsaw is running. She starts to look up and assess the height of the ladder there. So she's now getting a picture of this patient. Now, a bit of a jump in the video here, but she's now being moved into the simulation space with the mannequin on the ground, and where she the opportunity now to treat that patient. Oh, what I'd like to do, just for a second, is she will keep looking up at the screen behind her to actually to confirm what she sees and whether the patient actually represents with that type of injury. We videoed it afterwards and got some feedback.
Simulation for us, and we're just after a little bit of feedback. So we've got 3 simple questions. The first question, what was the impact of the 360 experience on the quality of your clinical simulation learning?
I think it was better because I could visualise the patient before I had to treat them, which is what would happen normally. You would arrive at scene, you can see the scene and you can picture what's around you, and I immediately could see what had happened to the patient, whereas normally I'd have to ask all of those questions when I go into the simulation.
Okay, and you're a paramedic lecturer, so you've got a fair bit of experience of simulations. Just wondering what you think are the key differences between 360 VR environment and the traditional classroom approach.
I think it's more realistic, so I think it better prepares the student for the experience, and I think it can take some of the awkwardness out of the simulation because you're already in the zone, if you know what I mean. And I think too, in going to out on the road, then you're actually better prepared for that because you've seen some images to prepare your mind for what you could experience.
Great. And last question, based on your experience of the project, would you like to see more VR and paramedic training?
Definitely, yes.
Cool. Do you think you might be able to build it into your practice somehow?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just stop that there. So, what the hopefully not got that screen anymore.
Yeah, it's just you now.
Just me. Is that right?
Yep.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it,
Yeah,
Jenny.
sure.
I'm just interested in the funding. Like, did you have to like go and get a helicopter and go and do all of that filming specifically?
This is a real, I'm not going to say a problem, but a challenge for us. We've got no funding for any of this. So we had a 300, maybe a low, cost 360 camera, maybe $400. We had a drone which we attached it to for some of the high shots. Because I work within paramedicine, I've got contacts within the helicopter rescue trusts, so we were able to get some of those images from those. But all in all, cost was minimal. It cost us next to nothing.
So I think the key thing was basically development time, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did have. Look, I'm a paramedic. I'm not a design specialist in computer graphics, so we were lucky enough to be able to get support from different departments within the university, which I'm sure as a concept may cost people money, but I think we were able to pull some favors and pull a few strings, thanks to Claudio and Tom. But ultimately, this was, and that's the goal. Realistically, is we want something which is affordable and not overly expensive to be able to run, so that we can be flexible with the technology, as well as you guys probably know, the technology is it changes almost on a weekly basis. So it's really important for us just to keep it low key.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Steve?
Well, I had a question. Thank you, Stephen, for that presentation. What does the person with the 360 camera do? They have to walk around the farmhouse scene or whatever it was and capture as much of the surrounds as possible. Is that right? So somebody has to do that, and is that a time-consuming thing, or?
Yeah, well, if the time-consuming side of it was obviously the development of the helicopter, the internal side of it, but all of the 360 images that you saw the students viewing, sure, they do take time, but it's not too bad. Literally, we're simply for the helicopter rescue trust scene, we followed them out with a 360 camera on a stick and into the helicopter, and then we set up a static 360 camera within the helicopter, and we cut the scenes to develop a short sort of movie experience, moving. You didn't see it in that image, but moving towards the helicopter, getting in the helicopter, and the helicopter taking off.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that if you could have stationary mount, such as in the helicopter, and then when you get out of the helicopter, and then actually at the scene of the accident. And so, because to sort of capture the full 360 at every step of the way, it seems you didn't do that, did you? You don't have to sort of allow the person wearing the mask to walk anywhere on the scene at any resolution. No. It's more that they're placed in particular locations and they can look around from that particular place.
It is a focused and directed journey. With I guess more money, more technology, it would be possible for them to wander in any direction they want. But this is about moving toward the patient. So we have a target, if you like, that we want them to move towards an experience.
Yeah, and so in this particular scenario, effectively what the project goal was to enhance and replace the traditional oral introduction to the high fidelity mannequin simulation. So instead of Stephen standing at the door to the sim room telling the student you're going into, you've just been on a helicopter, you're arriving at a scene, the patient's fallen out of a tree. So instead of just walking them through orally, it becomes a much more immersive experience by doing that. But yeah, it's very much a guided experience in this particular example, and there's very limited, as you say, user interaction with that scene beyond be able to look where they want to within that scene, which is also partly why it's achievable to do, because it's a low cost way of doing it.
Yeah, and you say the camera was a few $100s, so it's not tens of thousands of dollars worth of video equipment.
And as I say, it was accessible for me. You know, I'm not technology is not my thing, so it made it easy to put together. It made it easy to develop, and obviously you get more creative with the low fidelity technology, and that's actually, you know, that's a skill in itself.
So it involved a fair bit of brainstorming and storyboarding, you know, deciding what needed to be shot, how to put it together. And that involved, you know, the whole team. So I suppose myself as the educational technologist around the pedagogy and what you're trying to achieve that way, and then Claudio around the development of the helicopter model. And then Steve actually went, it was his house that the helicopter landed at. And he used a drone with a 360 camera on, and Claudio and Steve actually filmed a virtual landing in his backyard. And so part of the journey was Google Maps data. So it's an actual, you know, the terrain that was, the helicopter flies over for 10 minutes is actual real terrain as far as Google Maps goes. So it's like a real journey. And then when you get to land, it's actual real footage, 360-degree drone footage, sort of spliced into it. Yeah. So it might be a good segue over to Claudio. Claudio, do you want to sort of walk us through some of the stuff you've done?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to, well, before I share my screen, I just wanted to add that in that staff room scene, moving to the helicopter, which you didn't show, Stephen, but we had the whole movement of the pilots and the paramedics walking from the room to the helicopter. But we quickly found that motion sickness was going to be a huge thing, and we decided to cut all of the cameras being in movement. And yes, if we had the budget, that can be done digitally, but it will require another level of funding and development. But yeah, we managed to put the experience together from this collage, really, of, you know, footage, 360, digital development, Google Maps. Josh, the developer, he also accessed the elevation data from the local council to actually bring that map into a 3D perspective, and the landing and all that. So it was quite a low budget and high thinking kind of project in that sense. So I'll now share my screen.
So to leverage the expertise of a couple of PhD students that work with Claudio. So we, you know, it was transdisciplinary team working on the project, but yeah, basically zero budget.
So how do I share my screen? Am I a host as well, Tom?
Yes, you are. Yep, you should be able to share your screen. So Claudio didn't actually introduce himself, just while he's starting to share. Claudio runs what's called the App Lab at Auckland University of Technology, which is basically a team of pretty much sort of graduate researchers, students who are interested in exploring mobile applications, immersive reality, etc., in their own research studies, and they work part-time in the App Lab to develop content for different projects for the university as well.
So it's taking me to the settings. Just bear with me a second.
You got dual monitors, Claudia, or just a single?
No, I'm just on my laptop. But
Okay.
I cannot see my actual page. So I might share the link in the chat, and maybe Tom, if you don't mind running the show for me.
Sure.
I'll share it with Daniel only, sorry. Everyone, okay. There you go.
It says I need access. I'll just request access. It's probably because I'm logged in with my Gmail.
Yeah, I got the request.
And Claudia is originally from Chile. And that has led to links with university in Santiago, with a group of researchers who are into biometrics and looking at ways of tracking biometrics and being able to triangulate that to learning. So that's been an interesting part of the project. So that's where the wearable technology has come in. And they developed a custom biometric tool for us to use and software, which broke. And we ended up using an Apple Watch instead.
Sorry, so it says I need to get out of Zoom and come back so I can share with you again.
Oh, okay. It's probably
in a
just the
second.
first time you've done that. So
Yeah.
we'll wait for you. It's probably the same issue I had a couple of weeks ago. New computer. So while we're waiting for Claudia, any other questions for Stephen?
All right. So I'm back. Oh, do you mind making me a host again, please, Tom?
All right, sure. Yeah, the first time you go into screen sharing, you actually have to reboot Zoom if you haven't done it before. There we go. It's all good.
Do you see the Google slide there?
Yes, we do.
All right. So do you see the screen, right?
Yes.
Good. So I'm just going to talk about some theory and practice around developing this type of experiences. I don't know if you've covered much theory at all, going through what AR and VR and MR and XR are.
No, we haven't.
I'll quickly do that. So I guess most of you are familiar, but augmented reality refers to the overlaying of digital information upon a view of the real world through your mobile device, using a combination of digital and real view that you can see through the camera. Just a quick example. That's from a project, but pretty much we are installing some trees in front of a gallery. And another example is where you have an image. For example, here we can see all the plastic found in this particular fish in Easter Island. And through augmented reality, you kind of bring alive that image based on what you want to tell. On the other hand, virtual reality refers to the use of a computer to create an interactive immersive experience, and it does require a head-mounted display unit or HMD unit. You have the lower ones, the cardboard, which is very popular, where you use your own mobile, or the higher end ones, such as the Oculus Rift in this case, that requires high-end computing. But the whole idea is to bring an immersive experience through using the display. Mixed reality is the merging of real and virtual worlds within what some people call a continuum, a virtuality continuum. The first people to refer to this were Milgram and Kishino back in '94. And the whole idea is that you can have a continuum between the RE side, the real environment side, all the way to the virtual reality side, where the degrees of virtuality, of digitality evolve or change from 0 to 100, we can say. And therefore you will have things like augmented reality somewhere in between, virtual reality all the way to the right side, where you are fully immersed in the digital world, or real environment where you are experiencing the real environment without any digital tool. So currently the literature talks about XR, or what some people call extended or immersive reality. There's still some debate around the exact term, but the whole idea is that the X stands for anything reality, or either accounts for various views or possibilities, or as Stephen said, technology evolves so fast that we know next week there's going to be another thing. We just don't know what, but we know it's coming. So that's what the X tries to cover for. And the whole idea is that it brings more dimensions, not just the tool and the device and the user, is also the platform itself, the environment, how you engage with the technology, etc. The key, though, in XR is a focus on dynamic, self-determined, and a facilitating learning environment. Just some sketches of what it could look like in the near future in terms of access to information and data sets through XR. So I'm just I was planning to, I could show many examples, but I'm just gonna show one because it covers everything. And that's Pipi's World. It's a project we developed in the context of marine education for primary students in a visitor center. And we, long story short, we developed an experience where we offered 6 entry points. If we start on the left side, we had a real hands-on experience with the environment where students went into a snorkeling session, underwater snorkeling. Then inside the visitor center, we had a kelp forest where we wanted the haptic part of things to happen, engaging with materials and all that. Then we move into the website, obviously the focal point where you can access all of this post-visit. We had a series of augmented reality markers displayed all around the visitor center, bringing experiences such as the lobster march, the food web, plastic poster, or ocean acidification, all key themes that the team behind the project consider relevant for the students. We had entry points such as QR codes, where people scanning the codes with their own devices could trigger a 360 experience, for example, underwater or aerial drone footage of the reserve, etc., and use Google Cardboards available. And we also developed a fully immersive virtual reality experience using high-end computing. So we pretty much offered different points or experiences along this immersion continuum, as we call it. Just some pictures. So that's the setting and the app. And people, I must say, we ran this first without the technology in year 1, and in year 2, we brought the technology. So the whole structure of the visit was different, from transmissive, PowerPoint slideshow to young children. You can imagine they got bored quite quickly, to in the second year, giving them the freedom to explore the whole environment with their own devices. So they will look for markers or QR codes or different stations. Here we can see a lobster march marker, where you tell the story of how lobsters, male lobsters, once a year they just march to the deep sea. And then they also had to look for QR codes and bring those experiences into the provided cardboards. The kelp forest had this alignment with environmental education goals, such as learning about recycling and pollution in the environment. And it will be a place for kids to also do some drawings and scan some codes and learn about the whole ocean pollution thing. and then Pipi's World. So this was like a submarine model where the user will experience the underwater world in a close relation with Pipi, the fish, who will be talking to the user and talk through, you know, this is my world. I'm in constant danger because of the overfishing, but there is a safe place in the reserve where I can grow and be happy, and everyone else can be happy, kind of story. And obviously the real reality, as I call it, component, which is the underwater experiential learning part of the project. So along with Tom and Chris from Waikato University, we published this research where we propose a framework for mixed reality free choice learning in self-determining environments, which I recommend for you to have a look. But one of the things we discussed there is this idea of the continuum being circular, because there are many instances where you don't know if you are, you know, in a particular part of the continuum, and especially when you're jumping from VR to AR to, you know, snorkeling or whatever, it feels like the continuum is really more of a circular continuum, and we placed these different experiences within a circular immersion continuum, and that's something we still need to keep thinking about and reflect and research, but that's quite a good outcome from this project. Very quickly, I also, do you have any questions on that project? Or maybe we leave them for the end. But I also wanted to show you some of the work one of my PhD students, Ali Tahiri, is working on. He is researching design principles for an emerging medium, exploring embodied interaction in mixed reality. The whole notion here is how do the human body, the human experience, the embodiment of the experience occur in such a digital environment. He's drawing from pop culture, as he called it. For example, on the left side, we see the Iron Man movie where you have this fancy helmet bringing so much information at the same time. Or on the right side, we have the Minority Report movie where you have to be extending your arms for long periods of times, and that is just not possible in real life. You know, you get cramps in your arms, or you get cognition overload in the helmet case. So he's interested in how can we look at design principles and what do they look like in terms of practice-based exploration of different mixed reality artifacts. So this whole research is about how can I design for the body to be used in mixed reality environments, and he's engaging in different cutting edge technologies we can call, but really is about how do we develop and design so we can achieve things that, as you can see in the screen, you know, seem obvious. There's still a design process behind, you know, to make it cognitively friendly, we can say, you know, that the mind, the brain is not saying this is fake, this is, I do not believe this, because it's just not possible. On the other hand, we do want the experience to feel right, to feel okay, and the user to let go and experience, a little bit like the helicopter, where adding little things and tweaks like the sound will make the whole experience to be more real. And how can we use in the near future our body to engage with such environments, you know? So I guess the examples on the screen are pretty self-explanatory in terms of his research. And that brings me to the key points I wanted to raise for this session. So I think there is a shift from a focus on the individual tool, which is quite common, or was quite common in education, at least in the last 10 years, in particular for augmented reality and virtual reality, where you will only consider the experience as being isolated or being only one thing, the augmentation of the camera view or the virtual reality aspect of it. to a more integrated immersive experience that is more common in mixed reality and XR. And there is also an important shift in the pedagogy of all this. How do we bring the pedagogy in the design in these new technology enhanced learning environments? That's two important points to consider. So what we're really talking about here is, and especially when you think about new technologies and workflows, such as using artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual avatars, etc. When all that happens in the near future, how do we embed that in a pedagogically coherent way in education? And as I see it, at least, there seems to be like an emerging paradigm appearing in education and the use of MR and XR. But the key is really shifting from the individual use of a tool to a more dynamic and integrated environment that's possible with the new technologies and in this idea of the interactive and dynamic environment. So that was quite a quick overview of one project and one research from Ali. And do you have any questions?
So I'll throw it open to questions for Claudio and Steve.
I didn't get the circular continuum, how you came back to how you connected up. So maybe if Claudio, you were prepared to pop that slide up again.
The circular one?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
Well, to us, it felt too linear, not too linear. The whole idea of the continuum. How can we be talking about, you are supposed to be here, but at the same time you're here, and it felt like an easy solution at the time. It's not a line. It's a circle.
Okay. Yeah. I was trying to study the diagramming detail. Okay, so maybe you're suggesting we think of real and digital as the two components, and so you can be high on one scale or low on the other scale, or vice versa.
I think the key is not considering the continuum as extremes.
Yes.
But an integrated environment where you can be, at the same time, you can be fully non-digital, but in a second, because the environment allows for it, you are immersed in a particular experience. And that's I would say, the beauty of museums and free choice learning environments that allow for that. Classrooms are quite structured compared to museums, for example, where you have the freedom to do what you want, to follow your motivation, and the technology enables that.
You could do it within a more traditional classroom environment by effectively setting up, I suppose, stations around the class where there's different experiences that students get to engage with along that sort of continuum.
And that was one of the one part of the project which I didn't show was after the visit, what happens. And because we had all the materials, the markers, the app, and the VR and all that, we took the experience back to the classroom, and the kids themselves adapted the experience to their own reality. And that's something, again, very important in free choice education. How do you engage post-visit with the visit, And mixed reality, again, might be a good option for that, where you can easily adapt your system to the post-visit system, the classroom. Yeah.
Another way people do it is link into e-portfolios. So effectively, people visiting an environment, whether that be a museum or a historical site, are capturing their own content on their mobile device and then sending that into it could be cloud-based, or it could just be on their device, the images or the GPS location data, etc., and then they can pull that into a report or a project or an e-portfolio. of that experience. So it's not just the experience itself, but it can link into a larger project. And that's been a key issue with particularly museum visits and school children, is they turn up, they run around for 10 minutes, and then they all go to the tuck shop, and then when they leave, they forget everything they've experienced. So how to actually make that a really authentic learning experience that you can bring back into the classroom and critique and build on it. So yeah, thank you, Steve and Claudio. I guess what I wanted to try to get people to think about was how some of these principles and ideas could be brought into your own context. There's some sort of key aspects of your teaching context that could be enhanced by immersive reality in some way, or augmented reality. It's not necessarily that the entire learning experience has to be around this, but maybe there's perhaps some key issues or threshold concepts that students struggle with that could actually be enhanced around using immersive reality and VR or AR to help them understand those concepts that they struggle with. And those are the key areas that you should put your time into. Is one of the things that students find difficult to learn, what are the concepts that are hard for them to learn, how you can map those to prior experiences or other experiences that they can then link the concept to. And AR, VR may be one way to be able to do that. So just some thoughts there. So what I thought I'd do for the next few minutes is just give you a little bit of a quick sort of an overview of a simple tool for how you could do this in your own practice, and that's using SeekBeak. And this is a tool that both Claudio and Stephen have used. It's a very simple web-based tool, web-based platform. And a lot of the initial work that Steve did, he used SeekBeak. And as Steve said, he's not a computer geek, he's a paramedic lecturer, very hands-on, pragmatic. So what was your experience of using SeekBeak, Steve? How did you find it?
Yeah, it was a little bit intimidating at first, just because it was something which we'd never really, thought we could use. But once you get sort of stuck into it, and it didn't need much. It was a free online package and a $300 360 camera. Once we really sort of got to grips with the software, which is quite intuitive, it's not difficult at all, then we really sort of started to explore and advance how we could use this technology. I think we've got a paid package now, which actually you don't really need. I think you can do so much more with the free package. But it was good. It was user friendly and easy to use, and it has its restrictions like all technology. But at the same time, with problem solving and trying to utilize the technology to save really well.
Okay, so I thought I'd do a little bit of a demo. So I'm going to jump into screen sharing. Looks like my internet connection is going a little bit slow. We'll see how we go. And Steve and Claudia, if you want to hang around and put any comments in, then that would be great. But don't feel like you have to hang around any longer if you need to go and do something else. But thank you very much for your input. It was great. Really enjoyed your presentations, and there'll be a great resource for the class as well.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I have to go. I have a meeting in 2 minutes, but yeah, I'm available if you want to get in touch with me or through Tom. And thanks again for the opportunity.
And on Twitter, so I've put both Steve and Claudio's Twitter usernames on the notes for today. So that's a great way to get hold of them as well.
Well, yeah, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
I'm going to hang on and see what Tom's going to say about SeekBeak.
See if I say the right things.
Thank you.
So just sharing my screen, and you'll see the notes for today. So you can see I'll put a link to both Steve and Claudio's profiles. They are both on Twitter. I think in the announcement for today, I'll put their Twitter addresses, usernames. So there's Steve at @Stephen _ between, and Claudio Ciaguayo NZ. So just a very quick zip over how to do some of this stuff yourselves in a very simple way. I've suggested 2 tools, Google Tool Creator and SeekBeak. We're going to have a quick look at SeekBeak. I have run workshops on how to do this in the past, so I've got a link there to some workshop notes if you want to have a look at those at a later stage. If I'm going too fast at this point, have a look at those. And you can see some of the research that has gone alongside with this, some of the publications we've done. So the how-to is some very basic steps. First thing you want to do is create a SeekBeak account. It's just seekbeak.com. SEEKBEAK, and you can do this on basically any internet connected device, including your phone or a tablet. In fact, the first time I signed up for SeekBeak was on the train using my iPhone. And just, you don't need to even download an app. It's just web-based, so you just need a web browser, a modern web browser to do this. So effectively, you register. They'll ping you verify your email address for whichever email address you sign up for via. So it needs to be a real one, obviously. And once you've got your free account, it gives you what they call 3 snaps, which is effectively 3 VR environments that you can create for free. And those environments are effectively a 3 spherical image. So you need to be able to create that image, and then you make that image interactive via what's called hotspots. So once you've signed in, this is the account that we've been using for the paramedics, etc. projects. You can see there's a few scenes there. The first thing you want to do is create your VR environment. So let me just quickly walk you through how to perhaps do that. So I'm just going to screen share my phone, hopefully. Here we go. See all my notifications. Let's just go into full screen. So just on my phone, if I, so the easiest way to create a 360 degree image, if you don't have a 360 degree camera, is just use your smartphone and use Google Street View. So you download the Street View app. Here's the Street View app. I've logged in obviously with my Gmail account. And you see up the top, you've got basically 3 fields, 3 menus. You've got Explore, you've got Profile, and then there's also Private. So private are images that you've taken, but you haven't published. So the profile are the photos that you've taken and published and put on Google Maps and Google Street View. And what it does is give you stats as well. So with the Explore, you can find out other people's images around your location, etc. And you basically just use the map to zoom into the area that you're interested in. So you can see I'm currently further down the island. As I zoom in, you can see down the bottom, it starts to show me the images that people have taken and shared around this area. And if I click on one, it gives me an image. So instead of consuming other people's content, what you can do with the Street View app is you can create your own, and just using a smartphone. So if I just go into my profile, you can see some of the ones I've created in the past. And what I quite like is the stats that give you sort of feedback on how many people have viewed your image as well. And if I zoom out a little bit to include Australia, you see I've taken a few in Australia as well. And my most viewed one, I zoom in over here, was actually in Perth, University of Western Australia, and I've got almost 500,000 views on that one. So that makes me feel quite cool. That I took a 360-degree photo of the University of Sydney, and for some strange reason, almost 500,000 people have actually viewed it. I'll have a quick look at it. I'll just go into landscape here. You can see my actual image. And if I look down, you can see what's left of the camera there, because our 360-degree camera takes a photo of everything. So it includes, it's taking a photo of itself underneath. And I just popped the camera on the grass. I just sort of stood a little bit away from it because it's using Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to connect to the camera. Tried to look like I was doing something else. And then took the photo using the app on my phone. And there's the buildings. So I guess part of the benefits of publishing your actual photos, obviously Google's getting your information and data and sharing that with other people, but the fact that I now know that almost 500,000 people have viewed my photo makes me feel pretty good. So how do you create your own? So basically the camera icon with the plus down the bottom, you click on that. It gives you a few options. You can link an external 360-degree camera. So if you have a 360-degree camera, they usually have Wi-Fi, and they start around sort of $250, $300. They're relatively cheap. So the ones that Steve and I and Claudia have used, we started using the LG 360 cam. And partly for that, reasons for that were the cost. It was the cheapest available. It was cross-platform. There was an app for iPhone and Android. And it was available in New Zealand. So there's a whole range of cameras available now. We've actually bought a few different ones. We did find that the higher end ones sometimes weren't actually value for money. So we bought a Kodak. Kodak was a Nikon. I can't remember the name of it, but it cost us $1,500, and we thought, well, it's going to step up the quality of our image. But the actual mobile app was rubbish, and it kept dropping off the connection, and so basically we threw our money away. So it pays to read reviews or talk to someone who's bought your device before you invest your money. The second option is to import a 360-degree photo. So if you've actually got one on your device in the camera roll, you can load that up into Street View and publish it if you want to. Or the one that we're interested in right now is take a photosphere. So if I click on that one option, it engages the camera, and you get to see my wonderful workstation here. You can see there's an orange dot. Effectively, what you do is just focus on those dots and tile, and it just guides you through the process. You just take the images of your environment, and it basically stitches them together. So just with a single camera, it will give you an entire 360 of that environment. Very, very simple. The key being that you don't want to move your camera position too much, or else it's not going to stitch very well. And particularly if you're very close to items, they're not going to stitch perfectly either. And as you can see, there's going to be a few disjointed lines on this particular one because I'm sitting right next to my workstation. So I probably won't bother publishing this one, but just give you a quick idea of how it works. And as you see, you can take the entire 360 of that environment. So probably what you would do is you would actually go and find an interesting environment with stuff that's relevant for your course, or what we tend to do is get students to go and capture their own image as a project. Go out somewhere, get them outside the classroom, go and find something interesting to take a 360 of with their camera, and then upload it to SeekPeek and then start making it interactive. So that's probably enough of that. And you can see down the bottom that the little running man sort of running across, and what's effectively happening is the app is using the computing power of my iPhone to stitch all those images together and make it a 360. It won't be a complete 360 because I didn't finish it, but if I have a quick look at that, I can now very quickly mouse around. As you can see, it didn't stitch it very well, but that's because I was moving my camera and I'm very close to these objects. And you get some interesting effects, particularly if you're doing this, say, outside and there's people wandering around. Sometimes you'll find people multiple times in your photo. So you can get some quite creative results, or sometimes you find disembodied body parts. So feet or arms, and it's the middle of, if people walked in front of you while you're taking your photos. So what you then do is, if you've chosen an image that you want, you can either publish it to Google Maps if you want to share it. You don't have to, though. You can just keep it private and then just save it to your camera roll. So you choose an image. Here's one I've taken in the workshop before. I haven't actually finished. What you do is click on the share icon, and I can share privately. And what I want to do is actually just save that to my camera roll. So I choose the save image. Saves it to my camera roll on my device. So now I've got a 360-degree image. I'm not going to use that one, but just as an example. And then the next thing we do is go back to SeekBeak. So I'll just quit out of my phone. So now back in SeekBeak. Click the plus to add your 360-degree photo that you've captured. It calls it a snap, which is basically an environment. Either drag or click to select. So I'm going to go and find a photo that I've pre-cooked. Here we go. Let's go this one. I captured a couple in Singapore. So usually when I go to a conference overseas, I'll do some 360 photos. And I can give a description, etc. It has to be in what they call equi-rectangular format, which it just so happens that that's what Google Street View saves it under. If I make this perhaps an other group, upload that. So it'll take a few seconds depending on my internet connection speed. These are not huge files, so they shouldn't take too long. And effectively, this then becomes your environment, which you then make interactive. So SeekBeak, as you can see, I'm just running here in Safari on my laptop. And if I go and find, it's processing it. So their server is doing a little bit of quick processing. Not quite sure how long that's going to take. There we go, it's ready. So if I click on that, this then is the photo that I took. I can quickly look around it. See, you've probably seen the old famous towers there, the hotel restaurant in Singapore. The cool thing about this is the photo that I took. It's not someone else's photo. It was a photo that I took. And there's whole various objects here. Some interesting stuff that you can make interactive. So down the bottom, I can go into full screen mode, go into edit, and then the tools I have are add. So the add gives me a hotspot. I'm going to choose a point hotspot, stick it on this thing over here. If I double click on hotspot, it opens up on the left hand side the types of tools that I've got. I can't remember what that's called, so I'll just call it a weird thing. You can change the colors and the type of interaction that's going to happen in the hotspot. So it could be a URL, it could link to another snap, or it could link to a web page or a YouTube video or anything that's on the internet. You could get it to activate an email. You could get it to play back an embedded audio snippet. It could pop up an image inside the 360 environment. It could initiate a telephone call. So you can start to see how you can make these environments actually start to interact with the real world as well. So that bridging between the virtual and the real world, just like Claudia was talking about, is that sort of circular idea, is actually possible within this very, very simple authoring environment. We can create a real phone call by clicking on a virtual hotspot inside this VR. Obviously, you can see it's pitched towards things like selling products. So you can create an online sale. So if you had a 360 of a some business that you're selling products, you could then link out to how to buy those. This is one I find really quite interesting, is the Signal, which is effectively the Internet of Things. So what you can actually have in your environment here, maybe it's a thermometer in your scene, which actually polls a real thermometer via the Internet of Things. As long as you've got the right code, you copy and paste the code for that to poll that device into that hotspot. And when you click on it in VR, it actually gives you the real temperature or the weight or whatever it is the device is in the real world. So I could delete that, etc. So those are the types of hotspots that you can create. Very simple to create them. As you can see, you just drag and drop. Where do you want to place that? Choose where you want to place it. Double click on the hotspot. And then choose the type, the icon, the color. You can make it blink, etc. if you want to. They keep on adding options. So I've never seen some of these options before, which is quite cool. It's very responsive. I think there's only one guy running it actually, but he's very responsive to feedback. If you want to link between your 3 snaps, you use the snap tool. So that will basically take you between your 3 free environments. Or if you've got a paid account like we do, pretty much you can create virtual tours between 360 spots. And they have a new part of the tool, which is a map. So you can create like a map, and on that map you can link to various 360-degree environments and create like a guided tour, etc. You can embed code. You can copy and paste code from like embed a Google map or a YouTube video, etc. You can create interaction via forms. So you can start to sort of see some perhaps the educational potential of this tool. And once you've created your environment, all you do is, if I go and save it, I haven't really done anything there, but is click on the share. So click on the share icon, and then you can tweet it. Another reason to use Twitter, Lyle. You can stick it on your Pinterest board if you have Pinterest. You can email it to someone. You can post it to your LinkedIn account. You can just copy the URL, etc., and then share it via a whole variety of ways to get people to interact with your 360 environment. So there you go, very, very quick overview of SeekBeak. The other thing that you can do is that on a mobile device, you get another option coming up here, which looks like a Google Cardboard icon, and you click on that and it splits the screen so that you can actually put your smartphone into a Google Cardboard device and look at it in full immersive VR. And effectively block out your physical surroundings, so it's a lot more immersive. And then the hotspots are triggered by gaze. So as you'll get a dot in the middle of the screen, and as you move around, that dot moves with you. And as you hover over that dot over hotspots, depending on the settings that you set in your SeekBeak environment, after 3 seconds, it will activate that hotspot and do whatever the function is. So it's very, very simple, but can be quite powerful. So there we go. There's the very, very quick overview of using SeekBeak. Give it a go, have a play, be creative, create yourself a interactive VR scenario, share it with the rest of the class. If you've got time or the inclination, or you'd like to try Google Tour Creator instead, then have a go with that. If you want to get yourself a Google Cardboard to use, if you don't have one, I'll put a link there to some suppliers, online suppliers, probably eBay, or go down to your local store, hardware store, though you're kind of locked in at the moment. you can buy various levels of Google Cardboard headsets, from cool plastic ones to the cardboard ones, which are $4 or $5. So it can be a very a cost-effective way of getting into virtual reality and immersive reality using your students' own devices, using a very, very cheap Google Cardboard type headset. The key with Google Cardboard type environments is that keep them simple and keep them short. Because it has no biometric feedback built into it, you're going to get motion sickness probably within 10 minutes or less of being inside that VR environment if you're just using your smartphone and Google Cardboard. So don't expect students to watch a 30-minute 360 video using a Google Cardboard, because they're all going to be vomiting over the floor after 10 minutes or so. If you want to get into that sort of level of doing stuff, then you've got to move up in quality. So I'll stop my screen sharing. Questions, thoughts? Hopefully we've stimulated, perhaps some ideas of what you could do.
Tom, I just wanted to ask, are there any stock photos on SeekBeak, or you have to take your own?
Yeah, so when you create your account in SeekBeak and then go and create a snap, there's actually a little link underneath that says click here to use copyright-free examples if you want to.
Oh, cool.
So you can, there's literally thousands of copyright-free 360 photos that you can use. You have a question?
I had a question for Stephen, and I guess for you as well, Tom. I'm really interested in the continuum between the theory, then through the simulations and augmented reality, and then finally into the back of the ambulance, so to speak. But does it go the other way for continuing professional development or workshops and things? Are there people like yourself, Stephen, who are already qualified intensive care paramedics who are then able to come back and use these sort of scenarios for upskilling or using new technology at work? Is that something that has been explored?
Yeah, we have thought about it. It's certainly here in New Zealand, it's quite hard to get those things off the ground with local ambulance services and organisations. But from a simple training point of view, maybe Tom can show you some of the stuff that we've done even in SeekBeak, which offers elements of ambulance familiarity for novice or for practitioners who are working in an ambulance environment. They can come back to a virtual scene and explore that scene and looking at different drugs and pharmacology and skills. So it does become a learning tool for those that are on an ambulance environment coming backwards. And cool. Tom's got a link to one that we made on that.
Yeah, you keep talking, I'll find the link.
So the idea is that we have guys who work on an ambulance, and of course drugs, pharmacology changed and are updated, and have instances where you can and can't give the drugs. So we sort of backtracked it from the ambulance to the drugs, and some additional skills that we can train them up, or they can refresh their practice on. So yeah, it definitely does go backwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think looking at one of the papers that Tom recommended that you'd written, there was the stuff about the hotspots of looking for risks in a wider scenario, was another one that I saw might have some applications. Whereas we talked, the ones we saw earlier were about a particular scene, whereas there was the stuff with the dots for risk spots and things sort of caught my attention, where you could potentially go in and sort of expand each of the scenes or something like that.
So this is Yeah, I think this is it. Yeah. So we developed an overview of the university, which has 7 health schools, which just happen to have these 7 letters hanging around. So we gave each of the departments a letter, which so we've got nursing, podiatry, physio, and then we've got paramedicine. So we're able to move into paramedicine, and whether you're a student or work permanently on an ambulance, we can offer you different directions, different environments or rooms.
It doesn't work very well on Safari, unfortunately. Just jump into Chrome.
To renew those skills, to be able to complement your knowledge and in a different way. What we also did for this particular health school hub is what we called it. We offered the opportunity for clinicians to actually explore what other different clinicians do. So as a paramedic, my knowledge of podiatry is probably somewhat limited and might go the other way around. They might be interested to see what the paramedic students do. So we set up scenes like this in SeekBeak, which linked to videos, live clinical skills, as well as just basic demonstrations. You can link into the drugs.
Oh, the drugs.
That's my favorite bit. Which
are here. And so we can go around these drugs, and drugs, they change, different weight, different routes of administration. As a practicing ambulance clinician, you can come into this environment and refresh your knowledge and understand the concepts of how those drugs are used within practice. But we can also, I think the videos are quite good. I don't know whether the videos will work on
I'm just trying to, here we go. Here's the ambulance. We might recognize this guy.
There he is.
Where's the link to the actual ambulance?
Up the top, looks like a video.
No.
Discover AUT South.
Can't find the actual link to the ambulance inside it. And this is actually a little video. For some reason, it's not playing right now, but it.
So that's our normal simulation room, which is quite small and staid and quite boring and uninteresting. But we can offer them different environments for them to consider the risks and evaluate the scene as to what they think may well be important. But the drugs seem to work quite well, and within that room that we were initially in, it gives them some educational videos that we've made on skills, and I think as a tool to move backwards from industry to learning, I think it works really well.
Anyway, so that's just a very quick overview. The thing I really like about this example here in particular is that Steve and a couple of the other paramedic lecturers actually created all this themselves. And then the nursing lecturers created their environments, physio created their own. So, it wasn't something that required high-level skills to be able to do this. And it was much more as a creative tool and thinking through what do you want to achieve, what's the pedagogy. And in this case, it's much more a way of trying to give students an overview of what these 7 different clinical health disciplines cover and what are they, and do they actually want to be a paramedic, or do they want to get into podiatry or nursing? So in some ways, it's kind of like an interactive guide course book outline, this one. So there's different ways you can use the technology. Of course, it just comes down to being a creative tool. Okay, so we're pretty much at our time. Is there any burning questions anyone would like to ask Steve before we finish?
Can you get them to swear and get angry, the mannequins? Because they seem to do a good job of crying and being in pain. Can they get aggressive?
We actually can. So one of the scenes that we're developing at the moment is we're trying to put directional sound within the simulation room to complement what they see visually, as well as the haptic side or haptic side, I should say, of hands-on with the mannequin. We control the voice by the mannequin, so we can have a conversation, or scream, cry, moan.
So there's a speaker inside the mannequin and then a microphone that the lecturer uses to basically, mime or whatever, respond to the students.
We want the students to be totally immersed as best as we can.
The students can ask questions of the mannequin and the lecturer responds, appropriately.
Yeah. So the answer is yes, we can swear.
Yeah.
You probably do often, don't you? Anyway. Hey, well, thanks, Steve, and thanks for your time.
Yeah,
and
thanks, Stephen.
Thanks for Claudio as well. So really, it was just try to get you thinking about immersive reality and the potential, perhaps within your own discipline. A lot of that will just come down to brainstorming. So the projects that we've shown you didn't just suddenly sprout up. They were the result of many brainstorms between myself and Steve and Claudio, and getting around over coffee and talking about what's some of the key issues that you struggle with, or your students struggle with. How could we bring immersive reality into that as a tool to be able to address some of those issues? And out of those brainstorms came those projects. So so have a try with those with SeekBeak or Google Tour Creator, see what you come up with. And then next week, we're going to pick the brains of Stuart Hayes, who is basically the father of Hoitagoji. So looking forward to that.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Thanks, Tom.
Do some blogging and some tweeting. Yeah. Getting into our Mendeley shared library, etc. Our ecology of resources. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. See you later.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.